In a bustling Lagos mansion, a wealthy man named Mr. Durojaiye throws lavish feasts, but his secret stirs whispers he never eats, yet looks healthier than anyone else. When journalist Zikora uncovers the truth behind his mysterious shadows and a centuries-old curse, she sets off on a dangerous journey that leads to a chilling showdown with supernatural forces. Can one woman break the pact that binds him and save the city from an ancient doom? In Lagos, a rich man named Mr. Durojaiye lived in a giant mansion. Every weekend, he hosted lavish parties with tables full of delicious food. People admired his generosity and loved attending his gatherings. But there was one thing everyone found strange. Mr. Durojaiye never ate anything, not even a sip of water. He simply walked around smiling, greeting his guests. Despite this, he always looked fresh and healthy, with glowing skin and a youthful appearance. People whispered about it, wondering if it was magic. Zikora didn't believe in magic, not at first. She was a sharp, rising journalist working for Lagos Daily Pulse, and her gut told her this story was more than society gossip. It wasn't just that Mr. Durojaiye didn't eat. It was how he smiled. Always. Like he knew something the rest of them didn't. Something terrifying. She watched him from the far end of the hall that night, champagne in one hand, phone recorder in the other. Her eyes scanned the crowd, then settled back on the man in the white agbada. Still untouched by time. Zikora, go chop, her friend, Neka, teased beside her. Nah, this food day trendo. Zikora barely heard her. Her eyes stayed locked on Mr. Durojaiye. The moment he walked past a mirror on the wall, something caught her eye. He cast no reflection. Her heart stuttered. Was it a trick of the light? She blinked and stared harder. But by the time she looked again, he was already gone, laughing with a senator and pouring wine into his untouched glass. That night, Zikora went home with more than curiosity. She went home with questions. Dangerous ones. And she would not rest until she found out. Why doesn't Mr. Durojaiye eat? And why, when he passed that mirror, did it reflect everything except him? Zikora returned to the mansion the next day, pretending to be doing a light human interest feature on Lagos elite parties. But deep down, she wasn't looking for glitz. She was looking for ghosts. She arrived early, before the next party started, hoping to speak to some of the house staff while Mr. Durojaiye was away. The mansion stood proud on Banana Island, its high black gates opening with the whisper of old money. The building loomed like a sleeping beast, coated in white paint and shadow. The first person she met was Mama Ruth, the housekeeper who had worked there for almost 20 years. Her brown uniform was crisp, and her face held stories her mouth would never easily tell. Zikora smiled politely. Auntie, good afternoon. I'm from Lagos Daily Pulse. I'm hoping to ask a few questions, nothing serious. Just some background on Oga's parties. Mama Ruth gave her a long stare, then looked around as if checking for invisible ears. Follow me, she whispered, without another word. She led Zikora through a maze of servant corridors, hidden behind the marble walls of the mansion. They ended in a dim, windowless room that smelled of dust and orange polish. There, she shut the door and turned slowly. You want to know why he no day chop food, ABI? Zikora sat up straighter. Yes, it's strange, isn't it? He throws these huge feasts every weekend, but nobody's ever seen him eat. Not even a bite. Mama Ruth hesitated, rubbing her hands together. Then she said, Oga Durojaiye, he no be ordinary man. Zikora frowned. What do you mean? There are things inside this house, Mama Ruth said, voice trembling slightly. Shadows that move when nobody is near. Doors that lock themselves. Sometimes at night, we hear voices from the West Wing, singing in Yoruba, old Yoruba, like from long before my mother's time. But no one day there. Zikora leaned forward. Have you ever seen the shadows? Mama Ruth looked away. One time. I was cleaning after midnight because we had an early party next day. I saw one. It was tall, thin. No eyes. But I felt it looking at me. Zikora's skin prickled. What did it do? Mama Ruth shook her head. It just watched. Then it melted into the wall like smoke. Zikora scribbled in her notebook. Why do you stay here if all this is happening? Mama Ruth's face hardened. Because the pay good. And because I made a promise. Zikora looked up. A promise. Before Mama Ruth could answer, a knock hit the door, soft but firm. Another staff member peeked in. His eyes darted nervously between Zikora and Mama Ruth. Olga is back, he whispered. He say no visitors. Madam, you have to leave now. Mama Ruth quickly stood, her voice low. Miss Journalist, go. But if you're serious about finding the truth, talk to old man Daimeji. He used to work here before he ran away. He lives near Oberlin Bridge. But be careful, some knowledge can't be unlearned. Zikora thanked her and hurried out before Mr. Durojaiye saw her. But that night, as she reviewed her notes, something strange happened. Her voice recorder, which she left on during the conversation, started playing by itself. The room went cold, and instead of Mama Ruth's voice, she heard whispering. Not in English, not even Yoruba, but something far older. Something not meant to be heard by human ears. Zikora clutched her chest. The shadows weren't just in the mansion. They were following her now. Zikora couldn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the whispers again. Not in Yoruba, not in Igbo, not even in any Nigerian dialect she knew, just a deep, guttural murmur that seemed to slip beneath her skin. She replayed the recording 3 times before throwing her phone across the room. It wasn't her imagination. The voice was real. And it wasn't Mama Ruth's. By morning, Zikora looked like she'd gone 10 rounds with a fever. Her eyes were sunken, her hair untied, and her clothes hung loosely like she'd slept in them because she had. But there was no time to look pretty. She had to find old man Daimeji, the ex-staff member Mama Ruth had mentioned. She took a kiki to Oberlin Bridge and asked around for nearly 2 hours. Most people shook their heads. Daimeji? That mad old man near the underpass? That one always talking to spirits. Zikora followed the trail until she found him, seated under a collapsed wooden shack by a drainage ditch, surrounded by burning incense and cowrie shells. His beard was long, his eyes cloudy, but the moment he saw her, he whispered, "Ah, the blood has returned." Zikora froze. "Excuse me," she asked. Daimeji smiled with missing teeth. "I knew someone would come. That man, Durojaiye, his curse is ready to feed again. Sit, sit." Zikora sat cautiously, feeling the weight of the city buzz above her while something ancient slithered beneath her feet. "I need to know the truth," she said. "Why doesn't he eat? What happened in that mansion?" Daimeji's voice dropped. "You want the truth? Then read this." From a rusted tin box, he pulled out a thick, faded envelope. The paper was brown, fragile like dried leaves. On the front, it simply read, "To whoever finds this before the 200th feast. I am Durojaiye, 1822. Zikora carefully opened the letter. Inside was a neatly folded journal page. The writing was old-fashioned, the ink slightly smeared but legible. August 4th, 1822, Badagry, Lagos. I am Durojaiye, firstborn of Typhace Durojaiye. Write this in fear and urgency. My father has made a pact, a deadly one. It began when a white merchant came offering gold in exchange for palm oil, ivory, and bodies. My father refused at first. But our lands were dying. The rains stopped. The yams turned to rot. The river gave no fish. So he went to Olakin's shrine, deep within the mangrove, and begged for wealth and life. But Olakin did not answer. Instead, Araluage, a sea spirit with eyes like fireflies, came forth and said, "Give me your hunger, and I will give you gold. But you must never eat again. You must feed me instead, with your firstborn's blood every 200 years. Father agreed. The next morning, Gold filled our compound. Ivory, salt, riches, everything came in abundance. But he changed. His body stopped needing food. His shadow stopped following him. His eyes no longer blinked. And at night, we heard it, the spirits whisper through the trees, demanding her due. I was only 13 when I found out. And I have lived every day since, knowing that when the time comes, I will be taken. Please, whoever reads this, stop the curse. Break the pact. Do not let the 200th year arrive. For if it does, Arilo age will rise again. Zikora dropped the paper. Her heart pounded. Daimeji nodded slowly. You see now. This curse is not just about Durojaiye. It's about Lagos, the city's soul. Every 200 years, that woman's spirit returns to collect. The bloodline must give her a child, or she will take many. Zikora's lips trembled. But it's already 2022. Exactly, Daimeji whispered. The 200th feast is near. This weekend. Saturday night. Zikora stood suddenly. I need to go back to that mansion. There's something there. I saw a locked door. Mama Ruth said nobody enters it. Daimeji leaned forward, grabbing her wrist with surprising strength. If you enter that room, you may not come out the same. You will see what feeds her. You will see what he hides. I have to, Zikora said. The people attending that feast, they're all in danger. Daimeji hesitated, then reached into a sack and handed her a small red pouch tied with cowrie shells. This will keep you hidden. For now, do not open it unless you are near death. And when the shadows speak, do not answer. Zikora nodded and left. As she walked away from the underpass, her phone buzzed. It was an invitation. From Mr. Durojaiye himself. Zikora, you are cordially invited to my 200th weekend feast. You've been so curious. I think it's time you saw everything. The message ended with a smiley face. Zikora felt ice drip down her spine. The game had changed. He knew she was watching. And now he was watching her back. The night was silent. Too silent for Lagos. Zikora had returned home after meeting old man Daimeji, but her mind was loud. The sound of that journal entry echoed in her thoughts like the whispering voice on her recorder. It wasn't just a mystery anymore. It was a curse. A living, breathing curse that had festered for 2 centuries under the wealth and glitter of the Durojaiye name. She stared at the red pouch Daimeji had given her. It sat on her table, untouched, tied shut with thin white string and 3 cowries. She hadn't dared open it. The weight of it felt more spiritual than physical. Even the air around it felt heavier. And then her light flickered. It happened once, then twice. Then everything went dark. Nipa outage, she thought. But she felt something different in the air. She reached for her phone flashlight. But it was dead. She could have sworn it was fully charged an hour ago. She reached for her power bank, also dead. That's when she heard it. Footsteps. Slow, careful, deliberate. But not on the floor, on the ceiling. Her eyes widened. She stayed frozen in her chair, barely breathing. Then, the sound changed. A dragging noise like something with long limbs was crawling upside down above her. Tap. Tap, tap. She stood slowly and reached for the only thing nearby, a kitchen knife. Her breath trembled. The room was pitch black except for the faintest moonlight sneaking in through the curtain gaps. Then, a creak. Her bedroom door, the one she'd locked, swung open, soundlessly. She stepped backward. Her skin prickled. Something was inside her apartment. She could feel it. Tap, tap, tap. Now the sound was on the walls, crawling sideways. Her heart was hammering in her chest. She backed into the corner. Then a voice, low and ancient, whispered directly into her left ear. You are not supposed to know. She screamed. But the scream never left her lips. Her voice had vanished. Her throat moved, but no sound came out. Panic gripped her chest like iron chains. She dropped the knife. And then, just as suddenly as it had come, the presence vanished. Her lights flickered back on. The phone powered on by itself. The red pouch on the table had moved. Now it was open. Inside, a single black feather and a drop of blood shimmered like oil. Zikora collapsed to the floor. This wasn't a warning. This was a claim. They had marked her. The next morning, the sun rose lazily over Lagos, casting golden shadows across the cluttered skyline. Zikora had barely slept. Her eyes were dry, her limbs heavy. She dragged herself to her laptop and began typing. She wrote everything she could remember from the night before, saving the document in multiple cloud drives and emailing herself copies. Just in case. She didn't know who or what the visitor was, but she knew what it meant. They were watching her now. She needed answers. And there was only one place left to find them before Saturday's feast. She called Mama Ruth. "Come to the back of the mansion," Mama Ruth whispered. 11 p.m. tonight. I'll show you the room. That night behind the mansion, Zikora wore all black and left her phone at home. She carried only a pen light, a voice recorder, and the red pouch, just in case. The mansion stood like a sleeping king, surrounded by security and trimmed hedges. But Mama Ruth had been working there long enough to know the blind spots in the cameras and how to avoid the guards. At the back entrance near the staff quarters, she waited in the shadows until Mama Ruth opened a small, iron side door. She signaled silently, and Zikora followed her inside. Through winding halls and beneath creaking chandeliers, they walked until they reached the forbidden door. It was painted black. No handle, no lock, just a carved sun symbol above it, burned into the wood. Mama Ruth placed her palm on the center. The door made a clicking noise and slowly opened on its own. The air behind it was thick, almost liquid. Zikora stepped inside. The hidden room. The space was dark, silent, and cold. Colder than the air outside. The floor was smooth black stone. The walls were covered in symbols, Yoruba markings she didn't understand, mixed with patterns that looked far older. In the center of the room was a mirror, tall and wide, framed in gold but stained black at the edges. Zikora approached it, but the mirror didn't show her reflection. Instead, it showed a feast. People seated at a long table, dressed in modern clothes, laughing and clinking glasses. And at the head of the table sat Mr. Durojaiye, but not the one she knew. His skin was gray. His mouth stretched unnaturally wide. His eyes were black, hollow pits. His fingers had too many joints. He wasn't eating, but he was smiling. Suddenly, the image flickered. Then Zikora saw a little girl in the mirror, standing alone in the dark. Her face was blank, her dress old and torn. The girl looked up directly at her, and mouthed something. Zikora couldn't hear it. She leaned closer. The girl repeated the words. "He doesn't feed himself. He feeds her. Every weekend. One soul at a time." Then the mirror cracked. A loud boom echoed through the mansion. The floor shook beneath their feet. Mama Ruth grabbed Zikora's hand. "We have to go." "No." They ran through the halls, the lights above bursting one by one. Zikora could feel it again, the same presence from her apartment. It was in the mansion now, and it was angry. They barely made it back to the servants' exit before the door slammed shut behind them with a thunderous crash. Zikora was gasping. "What did we just see?" she asked. Mama Ruth wiped sweat from her forehead. "Every party, he offers someone. A guest. A stranger. Someone nobody will miss. The food is not the celebration, it's the trap. The curse needs a soul, and he keeps feeding her, every weekend." Zikora stumbled backward. "And the 200th feast?" Mama Ruth nodded gravely. "It's not a soul she'll want this time. It's the city. Back at home." Zikora sat by her window, staring at the skyline of Lagos. Everything looked normal. The yellow buses, the noisy traffic, the hawkers shouting "Gala! Pure water!" on the road. But she knew it was a lie. Beneath the concrete and neon lights, something ancient and hungry was waiting. She took a deep breath, opened her laptop, and began writing. This wasn't going to be just an article anymore. It was a warning. Because if what Mama Ruth said was true, then this Saturday, Lagos might not survive. The room stayed with her. Even hours after Zikora returned home, she couldn't unsee the strange symbols, the whispering shadows, and most of all, the mirror. That thing hadn't shown her reflection. It had shown her the truth. A hidden truth, one she was now part of. She didn't sleep. She couldn't. Instead, she sat on her balcony, watching the Lagos skyline flicker with life, unaware of the ancient curse pulsing beneath it. By 3:30 a.m., she began typing. Her article draft was now 40 pages long, complete with her recordings, journal excerpts, transcriptions from Mama Ruth, and what she saw in the hidden room. She labeled the folder on her laptop, "The Curse of Durojaiye, Feast of Shadows." Then she uploaded it to a private cloud and scheduled an autosend to 3 news agencies, with instructions to publish the moment she went missing. Because Zikora knew something now, she might not survive Saturday. Later that morning, a message arrives. Zikora was dozing off with her head on her table when her email pinged. She rubbed her eyes. A video file had been sent to her by an unknown sender. The subject line read, "Do not attend the feast," or "Come and see why no one leaves." Her heart jumped. She clicked the file. The video opened with a shaky handheld recording of the Durojaiye mansion. It looked like someone had sneaked in during one of the feasts. Zikora recognized the voices. Music. Laughter. Then came the moment. The camera zoomed in on the grand dining table. Everything seemed normal, until one guest, a man in a red agbada, suddenly clutched his throat and fell to the ground, seizing violently. Nobody moved. No one screamed. They just continued eating. A tall man in a white kaftan, Mr. Durojaiye, slowly stood from the head of the table and walked over to the convulsing guest. He leaned down, whispered something into the man's ear, and the man's body vanished. Gone. Disintegrated into dust. Zikora's hands trembled. The video cut off there. Zikora visits a university oracle. Desperate, Zikora traveled to the University of Ibadan's Ancient Manuscripts Department, where an old professor named Dr. Sogo specialized in Yoruba mysticism and oral history. She showed him a printed version of the journal page written by Ayamide Durojaiye. The professor read slowly, then looked up at her with horror in his eyes. "You said this was written in 1822? Zikora nodded. Dr. Sogo stood up and walked to a dusty cabinet. He retrieved a faded book and opened it. Inside were drawings, exactly like the symbols Zikora had seen in the Forbidden Mirror room. "This isn't just a family curse," he said. "It's a city pact." Alakan refused the deal. But Eriluage, the darker version of the water goddess, made it. Zikora frowned. "I thought Eriluage was a goddess of wealth?" "She was," the professor replied. "But not the way people think. She gives wealth in exchange for suffering. She doesn't demand worship. She demands devotion through hunger. That's why Durojaiye doesn't eat. His hunger belongs to her." Zikora's skin crawled. "She feeds through him." Dr. Sogo nodded solemnly. "Every feast fuels her. The food is not the offering, it's a distraction. The offering is always someone. The feasts are her rituals." Zikora felt a wave of nausea. "And the 200th feast?" she asked. The professor flipped pages in the old book until he found a legend. "On the 200th harvest of the bloodline, Eriluage shall return not to take one, but to collect the plague of gluttony from 1,000 mouths. And through him, the gate shall open." Zikora's voice cracked. "What gate?" Dr. Sogo looked at her. "The gate to her world. The sea below the earth. Once opened, it will not just consume the Durojaiyes. It will consume Lagos. The people, the wealth, the hunger, all of it. Return to the mansion." The time was 6 p.m. Zikora didn't care anymore. She needed answers. She put on a plain dress, tied her hair, and went straight to the mansion. She didn't sneak this time. She walked through the front gates like she belonged there. To her surprise, the guards didn't stop her. They bowed. "Welcome, Ms. Zikora," one said. "The master has been expecting you." Her heart skipped. They escorted her into the grand hallway. The chandeliers above glittered like crystals. The long red carpet was rolled out, leading her toward the dining room. Mr. Durojaiye was seated at the head of the table, dressed in a dark blue agbada embroidered with symbols, ones she now recognized. Heirloom age markings. He smiled. "Zikora, so good to see you again." His voice was smooth, but it carried something heavy. Something old. She forced a smile. "I see your feast is being prepared." He chuckled. "It is. The 200th. The most important." Zikora glanced around. Only a few servants were present, arranging plates. But the air smelled like roasted meats, palm wine, jollof rice, everything that could tempt the soul. "I saw the mirror," she said. Durojaiye's smile faded. "Then you know." She nodded. "The curse. The price. The spirit. The truth." He stood slowly. "And yet, you still came." Zikora held her ground. "Why me? Why invite me?" He stared into her eyes, something shifting behind his own. "Because I'm tired." She blinked. "Tired?" Durojaiye turned to the massive windows and stared out at the city skyline. "I've fed her for 2 centuries. Watched generations pass. Killed strangers. Sacrificed friends. I lost my son, my wife, even my own reflection." His voice dropped. "And now she wants more." Zikora said nothing. She said, "If I offer the city, she'll give me rest. Real death. But you're different. You came too close. You saw too much. She wants you too." Zikora's heart raced. "Then why not let me die?" Durojaiye turned. "Because maybe you can stop her. And maybe I want you to." Zikora took a shaky breath. "How?" He walked toward her and handed her something wrapped in black cloth. She unwrapped it. It was a mirror shard. "You'll need this. When the feast begins and the shadow forms, show her this. She hates her own face. It's the only thing that can weaken her." Zikora clenched it tight. Then, Durojaiye whispered, "And if you fail, run. Because once she fully rises, nothing on this earth can stop her." The night before the feast, back in her apartment, Zikora stood on her balcony one last time. The wind was strange. Lagos looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Tomorrow, the city would either wake up to another normal Sunday, or it wouldn't wake up at all. She turned around, entered her room, and locked her doors. The mirror shard sat on her table, glowing faintly under the moonlight. And in the shadows behind her, something moved. Night had never looked this calm in Lagos. From the 3rd floor of her apartment, Zikora watched the city lights flicker like stars grounded in steel and noise. But tonight, something pulsed underneath that glow. Something ancient. Something cold. Her hands tightened around the mirror shard wrapped in black cloth. Mr. Durojaiye's words echoed in her head. "Show her this. She hates her own face. It's the only thing that can weaken her." Zikora was no priestess, no warrior, just a journalist with a deadline. But something deeper had awakened in her, a calling or perhaps a curse. Either way, tonight wasn't about running. Tonight, she would enter the mansion one last time. 7:58 p.m., the mansion gates. The road to Durojaiye's mansion was unusually quiet. No street hawkers. No okadas, not even stray dogs. Just a long, deserted path surrounded by jacaranda trees that seemed to lean in unnaturally. Zikora's Uber driver looked nervous. "Madam, you sure say not here you day go?" She nodded, trying to smile. "Yes, just drop me at the gate. I'll walk in." He blinked. "Ah, nah rich people day live here oh. Their party no day end." She stepped out before he could ask more questions and approached the looming iron gates. They opened without a sound. No guards. Just silence. Then, from within, a slow, melodious chant began to rise, soft at first, then stronger. Yoruba words. Old ones. Words meant to summon. Zikora stepped inside. Inside the mansion. The last feast. The mansion had transformed. Every corridor glowed with red and gold lanterns. The usual laughter and loud music were absent. Instead, a rhythmic drumbeat filled the air, slow, steady, like a heartbeat. Servants walked around in flowing white wrappers, their eyes dull, faces blank, as though they were asleep while awake. Zikora walked carefully down the hallway toward the grand banquet room. At the entrance, she paused. Inside, the long table was set once again. Endless food. Fried plantains, roasted goat meat, bowls of pepper soup, steaming jollof rice, palm wine flowing like a river. Gold utensils sparkled against velvet napkins. And seated around the table were over 100 guests. But no one spoke. No one moved. They sat stiffly, eyes staring straight ahead, hands placed neatly on laps, as if waiting for permission to live. Mr. Durojaiye stood at the head of the table, dressed in ceremonial black, his agbada lined with tiny seashells. He raised his arms slowly. "Welcome to the 200th feast," he said. His voice wasn't his own. It was deeper, echoing, layered, as though someone or something else was speaking through him. Zikora swallowed hard and stepped into the room. Durojaiye's eyes flicked to her, and he smiled. "You came. The ritual begins." Without a word, the guests began to eat. Not like humans, like machines. Hands moved mechanically, shoveling food into mouths that didn't chew. Jollof rice fell from lips. Pepper soup dripped down chins. But no one stopped. No one blinked. It was consumption without hunger. Zikora watched, horrified. Mr. Durojaiye stepped down from the dais and walked toward her. He stopped a few feet away. "I must sit now," he said softly. "And when I do, the veil will drop." "What do I do?" Zikora asked, clutching the shard beneath her jacket. "Go to the mirror room. She's coming through the gate. But she's not fully formed. You have, maybe 5 minutes. When she appears, don't run. Don't blink. Just show her the shard." He turned. "And if I scream, don't try to help me. I won't be myself." Then he walked away, took his place at the head of the table, and sat down. The lights flickered. The air grew heavy. And Zikora ran. The forbidden room returns. She burst into the corridor and turned left, down the hall that had once tried to swallow her in Chapter 4. It had changed again. This time, it was darker, the wallpaper peeling like dead skin. The smell of salt and rot filled the air. She reached the door. The same mirror symbols now glowed along its frame. Zikora raised the key Durojaiye had secretly placed in her hand earlier. It clicked. The door swung open. Inside, the room throbbed with light. The walls were covered in wet seaweed. The ground was no longer tiled, it was water. A shallow pool stretched across the floor, and in its center stood the mirror of origin. But now it was pulsing, like a beating heart. Zikora stepped in carefully. Her shoes sank into the water. It was cold, too cold. She reached the mirror and stared. And there, emerging slowly from the glass, was her. Aralu age. Not in full form yet. She was smoke and water, shadow and gold. Her face was ever shifting, sometimes beautiful, sometimes monstrous. Her long fingers stretched through the glass like snakes searching for prey. Then, she saw Zikora. The goddess screamed. It was a sound not made for human ears. A shriek that made Zikora's nose bleed instantly. Her knees buckled, but she didn't drop the shard. Instead, she pulled it from her jacket and raised it high. Arala age froze. Then she hissed. Her form flickered violently. "You dare," she boomed. "You dare show me my face?" The mirror shard glowed in Zikora's hands. The goddess recoiled. The water began to steam. Cracks formed along the enchanted mirror. The room trembled. And then, the goddess lunged. Zikora screamed and threw the shard straight into the mirror. There was a deafening explosion. Glass flew everywhere. The water turned red. A whirlwind of screams, songs, and cries filled the air. The mirror shattered completely. The aftermath. Zikora awoke in the hallway. Blood trickled down her forehead. Her ears rang. The door to the forbidden room was gone. Just a blank wall. She stood up shakily and ran back to the dining room. What she saw made her gasp. The guests had collapsed over their plates, unconscious or dead. She couldn't tell. Food spilled everywhere. And at the head of the table, Mr. Durojaiye was slumped in his chair, crying. He looked up at her. You did it, he whispered. Zikora took a step forward. She's gone. For now, he said. But she will return. He reached into his pocket and handed her a small object, a ring made from bone and gold. Take this. If you ever feel the hunger, if you ever feel her whispering, you'll need it. Zikora took the ring, hands trembling. What happens now? She asked. Durojaiye looked at her, hollow. I've bought us time. Maybe a year. Maybe 2. He paused. But she's still hungry. And this city is still eating itself. Lagos, 1 week later. News headlines read. Mysterious illness at billionaire's party. 112 hospitalized. Wealthy philanthropist Mr. Durojaiye vanishes after banquet. Journalist claims Lagos is under spiritual threat. Claims dismissed. Zikora didn't publish her full story. Not yet. The world wasn't ready. She moved out of her apartment, quit her job, and began studying ancient West African lore full-time. She visited villages, temples, obscure riverbanks where people still made silent offerings to the sea. Because she knew the hunger would rise again. And next time, it wouldn't knock. Zikora shattered the mirror holding the spirit of the sea goddess Araluh. Mr. Durojaiye claimed they had only bought time. But the truth? She was not destroyed, only pushed back. Now, something is stirring again in Lagos. 2 weeks had passed. Zikora had moved into a modest room in a hotel in Surulere. Gone were her press credentials, heels, and camera gear. Her apartment lease had been broken. Her bank account was nearly empty. Yet her mind burned with curiosity and dread. Every night, she dreamt of water. Not beaches or streams, but dark, endless oceans, full of voices. And every morning, she awoke to news reports too strange to ignore. Third fish vendor found dead in Lagos market, mouth filled with salt. Baby born with webbed hands, doctors baffled. Residents report singing at night, no source found. The hunger was returning. One Thursday night, the dreams shifted. Instead of being beneath water, Zikora was standing in a familiar place, Mr. Durojaiye's mansion. It was abandoned now, shuttered, swallowed in vines. No one had seen him since the final feast. In the dream, he sat alone at the long table. Only this time, he was eating. And every bite turned to worms in his mouth. He looked up and said just one word. Ilira. Zikora woke with a start. She had never heard that name before. She reached for her notebook and jotted it down, her fingers trembling. The clock read 3:33 a.m. Then came the sound. A whisper. From the bathroom. She wasn't alone. Zikora grabbed the hotel lamp and crept toward the bathroom. The door was half open. She reached out slowly, her heart thundering. Inside, there was no one, but something caught her eye. The mirror. It had changed. Her reflection wasn't hers. The woman staring back had high cheekbones, glowing skin, and eyes filled with storm clouds. Her mouth opened and sang. A haunting, melodic tune in an old Yoruba dialect. Zikora's skin erupted in goosebumps. The mirror cracked, then shattered. She stumbled back, heart in her throat. On the floor, the shattered mirror pieces formed a word. Ilira. The next day, Zikora visited the Lagos State Archives. She spoke to an elderly historian named Baba Kalapo, who specialized in pre-colonial coastal myths. When she mentioned Illyria, the old man froze. He pulled out a thick, dust-covered book and opened it to a page with a faded illustration, a young woman with long dreadlocks standing by a lagoon. She was the first, he whispered. The first human bride of Durojaiye. Zikora leaned in. What happened to her? He hesitated. She was sacrificed. Why? Because she tried to stop the goddess, just like you. Illyria, as Baba Kalapo explained, was a fisherman's daughter in the late 1600s. Her village, now swallowed by the modern-day Lagos Lagoon, made a pact with the sea goddess Durojaiye. They would offer a bride every 100 years, and the waters would provide endless fish, trade routes, and protection from plague. Illyria was chosen, but she refused. She ran to the mountains and fasted, seeking guidance from the old spirits of the land. They gave her a gift, a mirror shard from the world before water. It could reflect truth so pure it would burn deception. She returned. She faced the goddess. And she vanished. Some say Durojaiye consumed her. Others claim her spirit lives in Lagos, whispering to chosen women during sleep. Zikora knew. She had been chosen. That night, armed with new knowledge, Zikora returned to the abandoned mansion in Ikoyi. The gates were rusted. The compound smelled of salt and rot. She pushed open the heavy front doors. Inside, the house was moldy and quiet. The chandelier had collapsed. Rats skittered over broken tiles. But the corridor to the mirror room, still intact, still pulsing. As she walked deeper, the air changed. It felt like being underwater. At the far end of the hall stood a woman, tall, dressed in soaked white lace. Eyes glowing faint blue. Not a ghost. Not alive. Illyria. I thought you'd never come, the woman said, her voice echoing like wind through a shell. Zikora trembled. You're real. I'm not alive, Illyria replied. But I'm not dead either. I am the warning no one listened to. She walked closer. The goddess is rebuilding her gate. The hunger is already leaking. Soon, every soul in Lagos will feel it. What do I do? Zikora asked. You've shattered the mirror, Illyria said. But you haven't broken the curse. Zikora's voice broke. Then how do I break it? Illyria leaned in. You must eat. Illyria led her back to the great dining hall. The once royal table was now decrepit, but a single silver plate lay waiting. On it, a palm-sized chunk of shimmering black meat. Zikora recoiled. What is it? The flesh of a river goat, Illyria said. It feeds on dreams. You must eat it in the land of the goddess and walk the labyrinth of guilt. Only there can you unbind Durojaiye's pact. Zikora stared. Eat? She remembered how Durojaiye never touched food, how his guests all collapsed after doing so. And now she had to do the opposite? Illyria nodded. You must understand hunger from the inside. Zikora took the meat and closed her eyes. She bit down. It tasted of salt, honey, fire, and tears. She chewed, and the world collapsed. The ceiling turned to waves, the walls to coral. She was falling through water, through centuries, through screams and songs. Then, she landed, but not on Earth. She stood in a city made of mirrors and bones. The air was thick with ash and ocean spray. From every building, people wept. She had entered the labyrinth of guilt. 10, and so it begins. A voice rose in the sky. Durojaiye. You dare return, mortal? She bellowed. You think you can walk my halls and leave unchanged? Zikora stood tall. I came to break the hunger. And with that, the mirrors cracked. And the real journey began. Zikora, a journalist, has discovered that Mr. Durojaiye's inability to eat stems from a centuries-old curse tied to the sea goddess, Durojaiye. After shattering the mirror that held her spirit, Zikora learns of Illyria, the first bride who defied the sea deity. In order to break the curse, Zikora must walk through the labyrinth of guilt, a supernatural place where truths are sharper than knives and memories can kill. Zikora stood at the threshold of the labyrinth of guilt, a city that seemed to breathe with sorrow. The walls were constructed not of bricks or stone, but shimmering glass, each one a mirror showing twisted reflections of forgotten sins. Fog rolled in, thick and heavy like steam from a boiling pot. The ground beneath her feet was soft, not soil but fabric woven from the clothes of the dead who had never confessed their shame. The sky above swirled with dark clouds that rained saltwater. "This place," Zikora whispered, her voice echoing. "It's alive." She took a step forward. The moment she did, one of the mirror walls lit up. And there it was. Her childhood bedroom. Her mother crying alone in the kitchen. Her father gone. Zikora, age 13, yelling that she wished her mother had died instead of him. "Walk and witness," a disembodied voice whispered. She tried to look away, but the wall twisted to follow her gaze. The labyrinth had begun. Every corridor in the labyrinth revealed a different fragment of Zikora's life, twisted, amplified, exposed. She saw her ex-boyfriend, Emeka, crying after she leaked his private messages to secure a promotion. She saw her younger brother begging her to visit their sick mother, while Zikora ignored the call, chasing a breaking news lead. The walls moaned as they showed her missteps, but worse than seeing them was feeling them. For each memory, a weight dropped on her shoulders, emotional guilt that turned into physical pain. Her back began to ache. Her knees trembled. Then, she reached the first gate. A woman carved from coral blocked the path. Eyes sunken, hair braided with seaweed. "Illyra, confess or turn back," she said coldly. Zikora stared at the ghostly figure. I abandoned my mother when she needed me," Zikora whispered. "I wanted success more than I wanted family." The coral gate split in two. "You may pass." Beyond the first gate was a dining hall. Unlike the ruined one in Mr. Durojaiye's mansion, this one shimmered. Too perfect, too bright. Tables floated in midair, and on them lay delicacies from every culture: jollof rice with goat meat, yam porridge, egusi, fried snails, exotic fruits, glowing gold. At the center sat Mr. Durojaiye. But something was wrong. His eyes were black voids. His smile never moved. "Come eat," he said. "You must be hungry." Zikora stepped forward, stomach growling despite herself. She reached for a piece of roasted plantain, and it turned to ash in her fingers. "You think this curse only took my hunger?" Durojaiye's voice boomed. "No, it took my pleasure, my legacy, my children. Everything I built crumbled." Zikora looked around. The food had vanished. The guests were now skeletons, still seated, clapping soundlessly. "This is the second trial," Illyra's voice echoed. "Don't feed the lie. Find the truth." Zikora scanned the room. One mirror behind Durojaiye shimmered differently, dark, flickering, unstable. She walked toward it and reached out. The mirror swallowed her hand whole. She screamed. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer in the feast hall. She stood on a boat in a storm. Waves rose like mountains. The sky cracked open with lightning. And there he was, a younger Mr. Durojaiye, barely 20, shirtless, bleeding from the chest, kneeling at the edge of the boat. In front of him rose Araluage, her form shifting between woman and serpent. Her voice calm and deadly. "You want wealth?" she asked. "I want to be feared. I want to be immortal," he shouted. "Then feed me." Durojaiye sliced his palm and dipped it into a bowl of palm oil. He offered it to the water. "You shall never eat again," the goddess said. "You shall watch others eat and grow weak. But your skin will glow, your name will echo, and your soul will belong to me." Thunder cracked. The pact was sealed. Zikora gasped. So that's how it began. Back in the labyrinth, Zikora now understood the scope of the curse. It wasn't just that Mr. Durojaiye couldn't eat. He was feeding others to the hunger, through celebration. Every party, every feast, was a ritual. And every bite his guests took empowered the sea goddess. And now, with Zikora's meddling, the goddess was angry. She was not just hungry, she was starving. As Zikora stumbled through the next hall, mirrors showed Lagos falling into chaos. Fish flooding the roads. Children singing old songs in unknown tongues. People weeping salt. She had to find the heart of the labyrinth. Only there could she end it. At the center of the labyrinth was a final door. It wasn't wood or glass, but names. Thousands of names, etched in red. Zikora felt chills. They were all the people who had ever eaten at Durojaiye's table. Some were still alive. Many were not. She saw Emika's name. Her own. To enter, she had to erase her name. But to erase it meant giving up her memories, her story, her identity. Erase your name, the wind whispered, and the door will open. But you will forget why you came. She hesitated. Tears filled her eyes. Then she reached out and scratched her name off. The door creaked open. Zikora, a daring journalist, continues her supernatural journey to uncover the secret behind Mr. Durojaiye's eternal fast and unnatural youth. She has just crossed the haunting labyrinth of guilt, witnessing fragments of her past and discovering the ancient pact between Durojaiye and the sea goddess, lavish. Now, having sacrificed her own name to open a mystical door, Zikora enters the Chamber of Tides, where the truth threatens to unravel not just the curse, but her very identity. Zikora stumbled through the threshold, her chest heaving as if she'd run for days. The door behind her dissolved into mist. Before her stretched a massive, underground cavern. Walls of glittering coral pulsated as if alive. Water lapped gently at her feet, though no sea was in sight. Above her, a domed ceiling revealed a swirling night sky, starless, vast, and suffocating. The air here smelled of salt and old secrets. At the center of the cavern was a pedestal carved from black stone, and atop it floated a glowing orb, blue as a stormy ocean. But what struck her most was the sound. A heartbeat. Steady. Ancient. Echoing like drums from beneath the sea. Thump. 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 Every beat made the water rise a little higher. And there, seated beside the pedestal, cloaked in scales and royal blue silk, was the sea goddess, lavish. Her hair was wet kelp that floated behind her like snakes. Her eyes? Two pearls filled with centuries of grief. Her skin shimmered like wet obsidian. You came, she said, voice like crashing waves. Zikora clenched her fists. I came to end this. You erased your name to find me, the goddess said. That was brave. Or foolish. I want the curse broken, Zikora said. Mr. Durojaiye can't keep feeding people to your hunger. The city of Lagos is drowning in madness. Lavish rose to her full height. She towered over Zikora, yet didn't seem aggressive. You speak of curses like you understand them, she said. With a wave of her hand, the chamber shifted. Suddenly, the floor turned transparent, revealing the ocean below. Zikora gasped. Beneath them were thousands of bodies, floating in slow motion. Men, women, children, dressed in party clothes. Faces twisted in eternal hunger. Every bite taken at his feasts, Age whispered, was an offering. Every toast, a prayer. Zikora's knees weakened. He didn't tell them. They didn't know. They didn't ask, Age replied coldly. Humans never do. You eat. You take. You consume. And you never wonder who is feeding you the cost. Zikora's voice trembled. Then take him. Not the city. Not the people. The goddess chuckled a low, hollow sound. You still don't understand, she said, walking around the pedestal. This is not just about Durojaiye. This is about you. Zikora blinked. Me? Lavish stepped aside, and the orb on the pedestal flashed. Inside it, an image appeared. A pregnant woman standing by the shore. Her hands were bloody. Her mouth whispered prayers to the sea. It was Zikora's mother. The goddess explained. Your mother was once mine. A priestess. A voice between land and sea. She betrayed me, ran from her vow, fell in love with a mortal man. Zikora's heart pounded. No, that's not possible. It is. You were born of land and tide. That's why you could walk the labyrinth. That's why the mirrors obeyed you. Zikora backed away from the pedestal. She felt dizzy. Sick. You're saying, I'm part of this. More than part, the goddess said. You are the balance. Eriluage's face twisted with sorrow. When your mother fled, she said, I cursed the first man who sought immortality through me, Durojaiye. I gave him beauty, fame, power, but never peace. His hunger sustains me, but now his soul grows bitter, and bitterness poisons the sea. Zikora's mind raced. You need a new link. A new pact. The goddess nodded. A willing one. You, Zikora. If you become my voice again, you can control the hunger, guide it, end the bloodshed. Or what? She whispered. The ocean will rise, Eriluage said simply. It always does. The chamber began to shake. Water rose higher. Zikora looked into the goddess's eyes. She saw not just anger, but grief, loneliness. But how could she give up her life? Her work? Her identity? I don't know if I can, she said. Then your city will drown in the feasts it celebrated, Age said. You came for truth. But truth demands sacrifice. Behind her, Zikora saw something move. Mr. Durojaiye. He had followed her through the labyrinth. His suit was soaked, his face pale. Don't listen to her, he shouted. She's using you. Like she used me. But Eriluage simply raised a hand, and Durojaiye fell to his knees, choking on seawater that poured from his mouth. Zikora screamed. She rushed forward. Stop. The goddess looked at her. Then choose. The cavern pulsed with silence, thick, dense, and heavy like fog. Zikora stood motionless, her mind spinning. On one side, Eriluage, goddess of tides and blood oaths, stood still like a shadow waiting to be reawakened. On the other, Mr. Durojaiye, Lagos's most enigmatic figure, knelt coughing up seawater, eyes wide with panic. Her thoughts were a storm. You are the balance, the goddess had said. You carry the salt of your mother's betrayal. Zikora looked down at her hands. They shimmered faintly, specks of sea salt dust clinging to her palms. Her pulse throbbed like a drumbeat, echoing the rhythm of the chamber's waves. How was she supposed to choose? I didn't come to become your slave, Zikora said aloud, her voice shaking. I came to stop this madness. Eriluage's seaweed hair waved slowly in invisible currents. Then stop it. Step into your bloodline. Become the tide that restores balance. I don't ask for worship, I ask for witness. A witness to what? To the hunger of men, the goddess replied. And the silence of gods. The goddess extended her hand. A glowing trident materialized in her palm, made not of metal, but of pure, shimmering water. Beneath it, the pedestal's orb pulsed with each heartbeat. Take it, Age said. Claim your right. Control the hunger. Zikora stepped forward. Slowly, she heard voices, dozens, maybe hundreds, echoing in her ears, crying out from the bodies under the floor. Mama, why didn't we leave the party? Brother, why did you tell me to taste it? Laughter turned to silence, so fast. Her fingers brushed the trident, but then Mr. Durojaiye screamed. No, don't do it, he cried, lunging forward despite the water choking him. You don't know what she really wants. She doesn't want peace, she wants worship again. Zikora turned. She says she wants balance. She lies, he choked. She'll twist you into something like me, hungry, hollow, ageless, but never free. Eriluage raised a hand and Durojaiye froze, pinned by invisible currents. Zikora stared at him, heart pounding. Is that true? She asked the goddess. Age said nothing. Instead, the orb changed again, showing another memory. This time, it was Zikora's mother, young, beautiful, fierce, standing before a crowd in the rain, shouting for freedom from the sea goddess's rule. "I chose love over power," the younger woman yelled. "Let the tides take what they want. I will not be their vessel anymore." Zikora's eyes widened. That was the moment her mother severed the pact. That was the moment everything began. "She abandoned her post," Age said. "And chaos followed. You see a curse, I see broken order. But you punished everyone for her choice," Zikora said. "Thousands, maybe more." Arelu Age turned, her voice low and cold. "You call it punishment. I call it consequence. Mortals forget that power is not kindness. I do not deal in mercy. I deal in balance." Zikora stepped back from the trident. "And what happens if I refuse?" "The city drowns," Age said. "Slowly, through rot, through lies, through hunger. The sea will seep into its bones, without storms, without warning. Just hunger." Zikora turned to Durojaiye again. His face was pale. Water ran from his eyes like tears. "I just wanted to live," he whispered. "That's all. I was dying. I had nothing." She looked at him, looked back at the goddess. And then, she grabbed the trident. Light exploded from the pedestal. The orb shattered into salt and wind. Zikora's body lifted off the ground, suspended midair. The water rose into pillars around her. A ring of spectral figures formed, former priestesses, guardians, lost voices of the sea. They whispered her name. But she had no name. She had given it away in the labyrinth of guilt. Suddenly, she saw herself not as a journalist, or a daughter, or a fighter, but as something new. A bridge between worlds. The trident melted into her body like ink into paper. Her skin glowed with faint symbols of the deep, ancient sigils of tide, moon, and silence. And then darkness. Zikora awoke on the steps of her apartment in Lagos. It was dawn. Her clothes were dry. The streets were quiet. Too quiet. She looked around, unsure whether the chamber of tides had been a dream. But then she saw the puddles. Shining puddles of seawater, scattered around the sidewalk, each reflecting a sky that was not quite the same as above. And her fingers? Still faintly glowing blue. On her wrist, a mark. A curl of ink shaped like a wave. She had made her choice. But the goddess had said nothing of what came next. Far off in the city, a faint scream echoed. Something had awakened. Zikora's eyes fluttered open to the first light of dawn spilling through her apartment window. For a moment, she thought she was still trapped in the cavernous chamber of tides, surrounded by echoing water and the sea goddess's voice. But this was her small, cluttered Lagos flat, cluttered with old newspapers, her camera, and half-finished coffee cups. She sat up slowly, every muscle aching as if she had run a marathon through an ocean storm. Her fingers brushed against her wrist, and she gasped. A curling blue mark shimmered faintly under her skin, like an ancient wave forever trapped beneath flesh. The symbol pulsed gently, as if alive. Zikora's breath hitched. It was real. The goddess's mark. Her heart pounded with a mixture of fear and awe. What had she become? What had she agreed to? The city's pulse changed. Outside, the city of Lagos was waking up. The usual cacophony of honking cars, street vendors shouting, and bustling crowds filled the air. But to Zikora, the sounds felt muted, distorted somehow, as if filtered through a veil of water. Stepping outside, she felt the unevenness beneath her feet, as if the earth itself were restless. Down the street, puddles shimmered unnaturally, reflecting a sky streaked with pale moonlight despite the rising sun. Her gaze caught a reflection in one puddle, not her own, but the flicker of shadowy figures moving beneath the surface, whispering names she almost recognized. "Zikora," a voice murmured, barely audible over the city noise. She blinked. The puddle was empty. The first signs. As she walked, strange things began to happen. People she passed looked at her oddly, eyes filled with a sudden, deep hunger and then quickly averted gaze. At a market stall, a man selling roasted plantains hesitated before offering her food, as if afraid she might vanish if she accepted. Zikora tried to shake off the unease, but couldn't ignore the creeping sensation that something had shifted beneath Lagos, something hungry. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You are the daughter of salt now. The hunger awakens. Beware the feast." Her fingers trembled as she typed back, "Who is this? What do you mean?" No reply. Investigating the darkness. Zikora's instincts as a journalist kicked in. The hunger was a story, and the story was just beginning. She headed toward the city's old port, where the waves crashed against rusted ships and the smell of brine mixed with diesel fumes. This was the heart of Lagos's lifeblood, where sea met land and secrets hid in the depths. There, at a dimly lit bar called the Salty Anchor, she met an old man named Baba Tund. His eyes were cloudy with age, but sharp with knowledge. "You're marked," he said without greeting. "The goddess's blood runs in you." "How do you know that?" Zikora asked. "Because I was once like you, a watcher between worlds. But I failed." Baba Tun told her of the curse's roots, a pact made centuries ago between desperate men and restless spirits of the ocean. Those who tried to cheat death paid with their humanity, becoming vessels of hunger, cursed to feed but never be fed. The first hunger. That night, Zikora returned home but found she could not sleep. The mark on her wrist burned with a cold fire. Suddenly, the hunger inside her stirred, a gnawing void deeper than mere appetite. She went to her kitchen, opening the fridge. But the food inside looked foreign, distorted, fish with eyes that glinted like stars, fruits dripping with salt water. When she tried to eat, the food melted away like sand. The hunger remained, a message from the past. In a dream, Zikora saw her mother again, standing on a shore battered by storm and tide. "Balance is not just giving and taking," her mother whispered. "It is knowing when to hold on and when to let go." Zikora woke, with tears streaming down her face. She realized the hunger was not just her burden, it was Lagos's. The city itself was tied to the curse, caught between worlds of flesh and water. The feast approaches. Days passed, and strange disappearances began in the city. People vanished after attending lavish parties, glittering nights like those Mr. Durojaiye once held. Zikora's heart clenched. The hunger was spreading. Determined, she knew she had to find Durojaiye again. Wherever he was, he held answers, or perhaps the key to stopping the curse. Closing scene. The city lights flickered like dying stars. Zikora stood on the rooftop overlooking Lagos, the salt wind whipping her hair. Below, the ocean roared, relentless, eternal. And deep beneath, the hunger waited. Lagos was changing. Not just the ordinary hustle and bustle of a growing city, but something deeper, darker, swelling beneath the surface like a tide ready to crash. The sky was a heavy gray as Zikora walked through the streets, feeling the weight of the mark on her wrist like a chain pulling her downward. Her eyes scanned every face, every shadow. The hunger was no longer just inside her. It was spreading, creeping into every corner, into every heart. She clenched her fists, the symbols beneath her skin burning hotter with each step. She had to find Mr. Durojaiye. The whispered name. Baba Tun's warning echoed in her mind. He is both victim and vessel, chained by the pact he cannot break. To save Lagos, you must break his chains. But where was he? At the Salty Anchor, the old port bar, she asked again and again. "Last seen near the old colonial district, near the abandoned warehouses," said a sailor. "The docks," another whispered. "They say he walks with shadows now." Determined, Zikora made her way through the foggy streets towards the docks. Docks of ghosts. The moon was a thin silver sliver, barely lighting the waterlogged streets. The air was thick with salt and decay. At the docks, the world felt eerily quiet, as if the city held its breath. Zikora's heart pounded as she stepped onto the rickety wooden planks. The distant sound of waves crashing mixed with faint whispers, or were they cries? She moved closer to a cluster of old warehouses. The rusted metal groaned in the wind. Suddenly, she saw a figure leaning against the wall, tall, pale, impossibly thin, yet radiating power. Mr. Durojaiye, the broken man. His eyes, once sharp and commanding, now looked hollow and haunted. "Zikora," he said softly. "You came." "I have to know," she said. "What is the price of this balance? What did the pact truly demand?" He looked away, voice cracking. "Everything. My humanity. My soul. I live only because the curse feeds on the city's lifeblood, on fear, on greed, on secrets kept in the dark." Zikora's breath caught. "So you've been starving while the city feeds?" Durojaiye nodded. "I do not eat. The curse forbids me. If I eat, I die. But I survive by feeding on the city's suffering. Every lavish feast, every whispered lie, every broken promise, it fuels the curse." A dangerous bargain. Zikora's eyes burned with tears. "Is there a way out? A way to end this?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, ancient scroll, edges frayed, ink faded, but the writing unmistakable. "This scroll contains the original pact," he said. "If broken, it could free us all. But it comes with a price." "What price?" Zikora asked. "To break the curse, one must offer a soul willing to carry the burden. The curse cannot be destroyed, only passed on." Zikora swallowed hard. "Then the question is, who will carry it next?" The burden of choice. The air grew colder. Shadows twisted around them like living things. Zikora looked at her own marked wrist, the symbol glowing faintly. "I have already taken on the first part of the burden," she said. "But I won't let Lagos drown." Durojaiye smiled sadly. "You are stronger than me, daughter of salt. But strength alone cannot save a city. It needs sacrifice." As if on cue, the sea wind rose, carrying voices from the water, mournful, urgent, warning. Zikora felt the weight of her mother's legacy, the sea goddess's gaze, and the city's desperate hope. The unseen feast. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind them. A group of shadowy figures emerged, followers of the curse, creatures bound to the hunger, guardians of the ancient pact. "You cannot break the curse," their leader hissed. "Only serve it." Zikora and Durojaiye braced themselves. The hunger was rising. The feast was about to begin. The night had thickened, folding Lagos into a cloak of mist and shadow. The distant hum of the city seemed to fade, replaced by the subtle, sinister sounds of whispering wind and the low murmur of the restless sea. Zikora and Mr. Durojaiye stood back to back, surrounded by the eerie figures that emerged like phantoms from the fog. Their faces were gaunt, eyes hollow and burning with hunger, not for food, but for something far darker, something ancient. The leader of the shadowy group stepped forward, tall, draped in tattered robes that fluttered despite the stillness of the air. His voice was a low hiss, carrying the weight of ages. "You cannot break the pact, Zikora," he warned. "The curse is the city's blood. To end it is to drown Lagos in ruin." Zikora's heart pounded fiercely, but her voice was steady. "The city deserves freedom, not chains of fear." Durojaiye shook his head slowly. "They serve the hunger, the curse's will. They are bound to it, and through them it feeds." The scroll Durojaiye carried began to glow softly, the faded ink brightening like veins of fire across the parchment. "This pact," he said, "was forged long ago by men desperate to escape death. They bargained with the sea spirits, offering their souls and the city's future in exchange for wealth and power. But the spirits' price was endless hunger, a hunger that no feast could satisfy." Zikora's mind raced, connecting the dots, the lavish parties, the vanished guests, the unnatural health of Durojaiye himself. "So the curse feeds on the city's greed and secrets," she said quietly. "But if that's true, how do we stop it?" Durojaiye's eyes glimmered with sorrow. "To end this, a soul must willingly carry the curse's weight, becoming the new vessel. Only then can the city be freed and the cycle broken. But once chosen, there is no turning back. Zikora looked at her marked wrist, feeling the cold fire beneath her skin. I carry the mark already, she said. Maybe I am that vessel. The shadow leader laughed, a sound like cracking ice. You are but a child playing with forces beyond your understanding. The hunger will consume you. Suddenly, the shadows surged forward, their forms shifting and twisting like living smoke. Zikora felt the hunger inside her roar to life, a terrible void threatening to swallow her whole. She clenched her fists, summoning every ounce of strength and courage. The scroll in Durojaiye's hand flared with blinding light, casting the shadows back momentarily. The clash was fierce, not just physical, but spiritual. Zikora's body trembled as the hunger clawed at her soul, trying to break her will. Durojaiye fought desperately, using knowledge of ancient rites to hold the shadows at bay. The city around them seemed to pulse with energy, a heartbeat of light and darkness intertwined. Amid the chaos, Zikora remembered her mother's words from her dream. Balance is not just giving and taking. It is knowing when to hold on and when to let go. Breathing deeply, she focused on the light within her, the strength of the city's people, their hopes, their resilience. With a fierce cry, she touched the glowing scroll, channeling her newfound power. The shadows screamed and writhed as a brilliant wave of light erupted from Zikora's hand, washing over the docks, the mist, the sea itself. The hunger's grip loosened, the cursed figures dissolving into harmless mist. The leader of the shadows vanished with a final curse, his voice echoing in the wind. This is not the end. The hunger will return. The docks were silent again, bathed in the pale light of dawn. Durojaiye looked at Zikora with a mixture of hope and fear. You have broken the first chain, but the pact still stands. Zikora nodded, her body weak, but her spirit unbroken. The city needs a new guardian, someone to carry the burden with wisdom and compassion. She flexed her fingers, feeling the mark pulse gently, a reminder of the journey ahead. Lagos awakens. As the sun rose over Lagos, the city stirred, unaware of the battle that had just been fought beneath its feet. But Zikora knew the truth now. The hunger was a part of the city's soul, but so was its hope. And she was ready to fight not just to survive, but to save her home. The first light of dawn crept slowly over the Lagos skyline, casting a soft golden hue across the sprawling city. From the vantage point of her small apartment near the waterfront, Zikora gazed out over the awakening city with a heart heavy but resolute. She had faced the shadows at the docks, battled the ancient curse entwined with the city's very soul, and barely emerged victorious. Yet the battle had only revealed a sliver of what lay ahead. Her wrist burned faintly, the glowing mark a constant reminder that her life had forever changed. She was no longer just a journalist seeking truth. She was a vessel chosen by fate to carry the burden of an age-old pact. The Guardian. Zikora sat at her desk, clutching the ancient scroll Durojaiye had entrusted to her. The parchment was fragile, the ink faded but still readable, chronicling the story of a forgotten deal between desperate men and powerful sea spirits. Her mind replayed the warnings Baba Tund had given her. The Guardian lives not for themselves, but for the city. Their sacrifice binds the curse, holds it at bay, but never destroys it. Could she bear such a weight? Could one person's soul shield an entire city from darkness? The thought was almost unbearable. Yet she felt a surge of strength deep inside, a connection to her ancestors, to the spirits of the sea who whispered in the wind and called to her heart. Later that day, she arranged a secret meeting with Durojaiye and Baba Tund in a hidden room beneath an old colonial building. The air was thick with the scent of incense and old wood, the walls lined with ancient symbols and relics. We must prepare you, Baba Tund said gravely. The curse is restless. The shadows will come again, stronger and more numerous. Durojaiye's face was lined with exhaustion, but also determination. The pact is not just magic, it is a contract of souls. Breaking it without paying the price will unleash chaos. Zikora nodded. I understand. What must I do? Baba Tund laid out a plan, rituals to strengthen her spirit, lessons in ancient lore, and trials of endurance and will. You will be tested, he warned. Physically, mentally, spiritually. But if you succeed, the city may live another day. Outside, Lagos pulsed with life as if unaware of the darkness looming just beyond the veil. The rich flaunted their wealth at grand parties. The poor struggled to survive in the crowded slums. Corruption, greed, and fear fed the curse every day. Zikora walked the streets, observing the city she was sworn to protect. She saw faces full of hope, despair, and determination, the very essence of the Pact's fuel. She realized her fight was not just against ancient forces, but against the city's own demons. As days passed, the glowing symbol on Zikora's wrist grew brighter, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. At night, dreams haunted her, visions of shadowy figures, of roaring seas, and of a great sacrifice yet to come. Sometimes, she awoke gasping for breath, feeling the terrible hunger clawing inside her like a living thing. Durojaiye noticed the toll it took on her. You must rest, he urged. The hunger is a poison, but also a power. Learn to control it, or it will control you. Zikora forced herself to meditate, to reach inward and master the strange energy swirling in her veins. One evening, during a secret meeting with Baba Tund and other city elders sympathetic to their cause, a loud crash shattered the fragile calm. Armed men burst into the room, their faces cold and unfamiliar. You're under arrest for conspiracy against the city, their leader declared. Zikora's heart sank. Someone had betrayed them. In the chaos, she caught a glimpse of a shadow slipping away, a figure cloaked in darkness, moving with unnatural speed. The curse has spies everywhere, Baba Tund whispered, eyes grim. Zikora escaped into the labyrinthine alleys of Lagos, her mind racing. The stakes had risen. The curse's reach was deeper than she had imagined, infecting even those she hoped to trust. She vowed silently, no matter the cost, I will protect the city. But the curse was relentless. The hunger grew stronger inside her, threatening to break her resolve. Amid the growing darkness, a mysterious message arrived, an ancient talisman etched with protective runes, sent anonymously with the words, "This will shield you from the worst. Trust no one but the city and its spirits." Zikora clutched the talisman, feeling a spark of hope. The fight was far from over, but now she was ready to face whatever came next. The city of Lagos never truly slept, but tonight its restless heartbeat throbbed with a darker pulse. Zikora moved silently through the labyrinth of narrow streets and shadowed alleys, every step measured and cautious. The talisman burned softly against her chest, a small but constant reminder that she was no longer alone in this fight. Her mind replayed the night's betrayal. The sudden raid, the armed men crashing through the elders' meeting, and the shadowy figure who slipped away like smoke. Who could she trust? Was the curse truly woven into the city's soul, binding friend and foe alike in a tangled web? As she navigated Lagos's winding streets, Zikora's eyes caught flickers of movement in the darkness, figures watching, waiting. Some were human, others seemed less so. The air felt charged, as if the city itself was alive and watching her every move. Passing a small, dimly lit shrine, she paused. The shrine was dedicated to Olakan, the god of the deep sea, guardian of secrets and mysteries. Zikora's fingers brushed the carved wooden mask, seeking guidance. Olakan, she whispered, help me unravel the shadows that choke this city. A sudden breeze stirred the incense, carrying whispers barely audible above the night. Was it a warning or a blessing? Back at her safe house, Zikora pored over every scrap of information she had collected, the scrolls, the journals, the notes from Baba Tund, and Durojaiye's cryptic warnings. The curse's influence extended far beyond the docks or lavish mansions. It had infiltrated the city's power structures, politicians, business magnates, even the police. She realized the betrayal was part of a larger scheme, a carefully spun web designed to ensnare those who dared oppose the ancient pact. Her phone buzzed, an encrypted message from an unknown number. Trust no one. The hunger watches. Meet me at the old market at midnight. Alone. The old market was a relic from Lagos's past, empty stalls, crumbling walls, and shadows that seemed to crawl. Zikora arrived just before midnight, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. From the darkness emerged a figure draped in a faded agbada, his face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat. His voice was low but urgent. I know who betrayed you, he said. And I know how to stop the curse, but it will cost you everything. Zikora stepped closer. Who are you? They call me Oba, a guardian like you, but one who has walked the path longer. Oba pulled out a worn book bound in cracked leather. This book holds the ritual to sever the pact, to break the curse's chain. But you must be prepared. It will drain your spirit and test your soul. Oba explained that the ritual required a sacrifice not of blood, but of willpower. The guardian must offer their own essence as a vessel to absorb the curse's hunger, trapping it within themselves forever. You will live, Oba said gravely, but you will never be free. The city's protector and prisoner in one. Zikora's breath caught. The price was unimaginable, a lifetime of struggle against the darkness within. Yet the thought of Lagos freed from this nightmare was worth any cost. Oba warned her that the curse's servants would come for her, desperate to stop the ritual. Gather those who still believe, he said. The fight is not yours alone. Zikora thought of Durojaiye, Babatund, and even those unknown faces in the city who resisted corruption and darkness. She was not just a guardian, she was a beacon. As she left the market, a chill ran down her spine. The hunger stirred, a gnawing emptiness clawing at her soul. She knew the shadows would strike soon. But armed with knowledge, allies, and unwavering resolve, Zikora was ready to weave a new web, one of light, hope, and resistance. The city had fallen into uneasy silence, as if holding its breath in anticipation. Lagos at night was a different world. Shadows draped every corner, whispers floated through the humid air, and unseen eyes watched every movement. For Zikora, each moment was heavy with the weight of what was to come. The ritual to break the curse wasn't just a ceremony, it was a plunge into darkness, a test of spirit, body, and mind. Failure would mean not only her destruction, but the unchaining of an ancient evil that could consume the city whole. Gathering the circle. In a secluded room high above the roaring streets, Zikora gathered her trusted allies. Durojaiye's presence brought a steadying calm, while Babatund's fierce wisdom radiated strength. Oba, the mysterious guardian from the market, stood quietly by the door, watching, waiting. We have one chance, Zikora began, voice steady despite the storm raging inside. This ritual will bind me to the curse, absorb its hunger, but it will not destroy it. Only through my sacrifice can the city breathe. Durojaiye nodded slowly. You will not be alone. We stand with you. Babatund raised his hand, palm glowing faintly with ancient symbols. The spirits have heard your vow. We must call them now. The preparation. Hours passed in solemn preparation. Incense burned thick, filling the room with scents of myrrh and sandalwood. The walls were draped with cloth embroidered with symbols of protection and power. Zikora dressed in traditional white cloth, a symbol of purity and sacrifice. Oba handed her a necklace of carved bone beads, a talisman to anchor her soul during the ritual. Babatund traced intricate patterns on the floor with white chalk, weaving a sacred circle designed to contain the curse's power. The first invocation. As the moon reached its zenith, Babatund began the invocation, chanting words in Yoruba older than the city itself. The air shimmered, and the talisman on Zikora's wrist flared with brilliant light. The hunger inside her twisted and writhed, as if sensing the coming trap. Outside, the wind howled and distant thunder rolled across the cityscape. The hunger's assault. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. The sacred circle glowed faintly, the only source of light in the enveloping black. From the shadows, a cold presence emerged, the hunger, the curse's living heart. It was not a beast, but a shifting shadow, tendrils of darkness coiling and pulsing with malevolent life. Zikora's breath caught. The hunger whispered in her mind, promises of power, threats of oblivion, endless hunger for her soul. She clenched her fists, drawing on every shred of strength and the talisman's power. "You will not have me," she whispered, stepping into the circle. The battle within. The ritual had begun, a battle fought not with weapons, but with will. The hunger lashed out, invading her thoughts, clawing at her memories, trying to unravel her mind. Zikora fought back, anchoring herself in her purpose, the city she loved, the people she vowed to protect. Images flashed in her mind, her childhood streets, the faces of those who had suffered under the curse, the glowing health of Durojaiye, despite his secret. Every memory was a blade, cutting through the darkness. The price revealed. As the struggle deepened, Zikora felt her own life force ebbing, her body trembling under the strain. Oba's voice echoed in the darkness. "Hold fast. The price of breaking the pact is the sacrifice of freedom." She understood now. To save Lagos, she must become the prison, a living vessel holding the curse's hunger at bay. Her sacrifice was eternal. The circle holds. For hours, the battle raged, until dawn's first light began to seep through the windows. The hunger recoiled, weakened but not destroyed, trapped within Zikora's spirit. Exhausted and pale, she collapsed to her knees inside the sacred circle. Durojaiye rushed forward, catching her before she fell. "You did it," he whispered, tears in his eyes. "But at what cost?" Zikora murmured, the glowing mark on her wrist now a permanent beacon. "A new guardian." Zikora rose, weary but resolute. "I am the guardian now," she said softly. The city was safe for now. But the hunger waited, forever bound to her soul, a silent shadow stalking her every moment. And somewhere deep in the night, the whisper came again. "This is only the beginning." The first light of dawn was weak and pale, barely piercing the dense fog that clung to the streets of Lagos like a shroud. But inside the mansion high above the restless city, a new kind of light stirred, a light born from sacrifice and determination. Zikora sat alone in the vast, silent hall, her body trembling from exhaustion, yet her eyes sharp with a fierce new resolve. The talisman on her wrist glowed faintly, a constant reminder of the ancient hunger now bound to her very soul. She had saved Lagos from destruction, but the victory came at a price few could understand. The weight of the curse. Days passed, but Zikora felt no relief. The hunger whispered relentlessly in her mind, a constant gnawing void that no food, no drink, no sleep could fill. It was a presence both foreign and intimate, like a shadow stretching from within her own heart. Every night, as the city fell silent, the hunger stirred, demanding attention. It clawed at her thoughts, twisting memories into nightmares and filling her dreams with visions of darkness, swallowing the city whole. The city's unseen battle. Outside, Lagos buzzed with its usual chaotic rhythm, cars honking, vendors shouting, people living unaware of the invisible war unfolding in their midst. The curse, now tethered to Zikora's spirit, pulsed faintly beneath the city's vibrant surface. Durojaiye visited often, his concern deep, but his faith unshaken. "You carry a burden no one else can see," he told her one evening as they watched the sunset paint the skyline. "But it's not mine alone," Zikora replied quietly. "I'm the shield now, but the city's fate depends on all of us." Baba Tund arrived with news from the elders, rumors of shadowy figures gathering in the outskirts, cults trying to exploit the curse's weakening. The ancient pact was not easily broken, its tendrils reached far and deep. The lonely path. Zikora's days blurred into a cycle of vigilance and struggle. The hunger inside her was a constant test, moments of unbearable pain followed by eerie calm. She refused to give in, learning to channel the curse's energy, turning its destructive force into a weapon of protection. Her body weakened, but her spirit sharpened. She trained her mind with meditation and rituals, seeking guidance from the spirits through Baba Tun's teachings. Yet the loneliness was profound. No one could share her burden, no one could see the invisible chains wrapped around her soul. Shadows in the night. One night, as Lagos slept beneath a blanket of stars, Zikora sensed a presence at the mansion's gates. She slipped silently through the darkened corridors, her senses heightened by the curse's energy coursing through her veins. In the courtyard stood a figure cloaked in shadow, a messenger from the hunger's dark realm. "You cannot hide forever, guardian," the figure whispered, voice cold as the grave. "The pact demands its due." Zikora met the shadow's gaze, unflinching. "I am no longer your prisoner." A battle of wills erupted, the shadow's darkness pressing against her light. A clash felt in the very air around them. The city watches. Far away, unnoticed by most, the people of Lagos carried on, unaware of the delicate balance held by one woman's sacrifice. But some felt the change, a slight lift in the city's restless spirit, a glimmer of hope beneath the looming threat. Zikora's friends, her allies, moved in the shadows, gathering intelligence, confronting cultists, fighting corruption. The war for Lagos' soul had only just begun. The vigil continues. Back in the mansion's high tower, Zikora stood alone, staring out at the sprawling city beneath her feet. The hunger inside her was a silent companion now, a reminder of the pact she bore and the promise she made. She whispered a vow to the night sky, "As long as I live, I will hold this darkness back." For Lagos, for its people, for the future, and though the hunger waited patiently, she was ready. The days grew heavier in Lagos. The heat pressed down like an unrelenting weight, and even the usual lively buzz of the city seemed tinged with unease. Beneath the ceaseless motion of traffic and laughter, a darker current flowed, one only a few could sense. For Zikora, the storm wasn't just outside, it was inside her. The hunger's whisper was growing louder, more insistent. It clawed at her thoughts with sharper teeth, promising power but threatening to consume her entirely. One afternoon, Zikora walked through the crowded streets of Balagan Market with Oba. The air was thick with the scents of spices, fried plantains, and fresh fish, but her mind was elsewhere. Oba leaned closer, his voice low. "The cultists grow bolder. Just last night, they attacked a shrine near Ajaganal. They seek the fragments of the curse's original seal." Zikora frowned. "If they break the seal, the hunger will be free again." Oba's eyes darkened. "And the city will burn." They moved swiftly through the maze of stalls, eyes scanning for signs of trouble. Vendors whispered of strange sightings, shadows moving without owners, eerie chanting carried on the wind. That evening, Zikora met with Baba Tund and the elders of the city's spiritual council in a hidden courtyard surrounded by ancient Irako trees. The air was cooler here, the scent of earth and leaves grounding. Baba Tund's voice was grave. "The curse is unraveling. The pact is weakening, but so is your strength." Zikora clenched her fists. "What must I do?" An elder, eyes cloudy with age but fierce in will, spoke. "You must find the 3 sacred artifacts, lost relics that hold the power to reinforce the seal." Zikora nodded, knowing the quest would be perilous. "Where do I begin?" "The Oba's tomb outside the city," the elder said. "Guarded by traps and spirits." Durojaiye's secret revealed. Back at the mansion, Durojaiye confided in Zikora late at night. His usual calm was replaced by urgency. "There's more you need to know," he said quietly. "My family's wealth came from a deal made generations ago, a pact with the same forces that curse you now." Zikora's eyes widened. "You mean your ancestors are tied to this?" He nodded. They bound the hunger to our bloodline to protect the city, but the price was high. Zikora's mind raced. So your health, your vitality, it's because of this curse? Yes, he admitted. And now it's your fight. Late that night, shadows crept near the mansion. Figures cloaked in black moved silently through the gardens, their eyes glowing with fanatic devotion. Oba and Baba Tun stood ready, chanting protective words as Zikora prepared her weapons, a blade etched with runes, blessed by the elders. The cultists attacked suddenly, the air crackling with dark energy. A fierce battle erupted beneath the moonlight, shadows clashing with light in a brutal dance. Zikora fought with desperation, feeling the hunger surge inside her, fueling her strength, but threatening to overwhelm. When dawn broke, the attackers fled, but the warning was clear, the storm was coming. By morning, rumors spread like wildfire. People spoke of strange disappearances, eerie howls at night, and the mansion's eerie glow. The city's pulse quickened with fear and anticipation. Zikora stood at the mansion's balcony, looking out over Lagos, a city she was sworn to protect, yet one teetering on the edge of darkness. Her voice was steady despite the turmoil. I will find the artifacts. I will stop the curse from consuming us all. As she prepared to leave, Baba Tund pressed a small, worn scroll into her hand. This contains the final instructions, he said. Be warned, the artifacts are guarded not just by traps, but by spirits who test your heart. Zikora folded the scroll carefully. Then I will face whatever comes. The hunger pulsed within her, a reminder that time was running out. The sun was just beginning to cast its golden fingers over Lagos when Zikora set out from the mansion, a small pack slung over her shoulder, the talisman tight on her wrist, and Baba Tun's worn scroll folded inside her jacket. The city was already alive, hawkers shouting, cars honking, and children laughing in the distance. Yet beyond the outskirts, the wild and the ancient awaited. Her destination was the Oba's tomb, a place whispered about in fear and legend. The elders had warned her. The tomb was a labyrinth of traps, illusions, and restless spirits, all designed to keep the sacred relics safe from those unworthy. The journey begins. As Zikora left behind the towering skyline of Lagos, the concrete gave way to dusty roads, lined with towering palm trees and crumbling walls. The chatter of the city faded, replaced by the songs of birds and the rustle of dry leaves. Oba, who insisted on accompanying her despite the dangers, walked closely beside her, his sharp eyes scanning their surroundings. We must move carefully, he warned. The cultists know you've left. They'll try to stop you. Zikora nodded, gripping the blade at her side, its rune-etched surface humming faintly with power. First trials, the labyrinth. Approaching the tomb's entrance, a towering stone arch covered with ancient Yoruba carvings greeted them. The air was cooler here, thick with the scent of earth and history. The scroll instructed, "Speak the words, and the path shall open. Beware the illusions, trust only your heart." Zikora whispered the incantation, her voice steady despite the eerie silence that followed. Slowly, the massive stone doors ground open with a groan, revealing a dark corridor. Inside, shadows danced against the walls, but some were not shadows at all. Illusions shifted, showing visions of loved ones, fears, and hopes, designed to trap intruders in endless loops of emotion. Zikora steadied her breath. She touched the talisman and focused on the memory of her mother's laughter, a light in the darkness. The illusions faltered, revealing the true path forward. Oba followed silently, his own resolve clear as he helped fend off creeping vines that tried to snare them and spikes hidden beneath the floor. Spirits of the tomb. Deeper into the labyrinth, the air grew colder and whispers echoed around them. Ghostly figures appeared, ancient guardians of the relics. One spirit, a tall woman adorned in traditional cloth, stepped forward. Her eyes were pools of sorrow and warning. To claim the relics, you must prove your heart is pure. Only the worthy may carry the burden. Zikora bowed her head respectfully. I seek to protect my city and break the curse that threatens us all." The spirit's form shimmered, then dissolved into a glowing orb that floated toward Zikora, merging with her talisman. A warmth spread through her chest. The first relic, the ASE crystal, was now bound to her spirit. The second relic, the Staff of Ogun. The next chamber was a vast cavern illuminated by glowing fungi and ancient runes. At its center stood a mighty staff embedded in stone. Zikora approached carefully. Suddenly, a fierce roar echoed, and from the shadows emerged a massive guardian beast, a spectral lion with eyes like molten gold. The lion lunged, but Zikora dodged, her blade flashing. The battle was fierce, testing her strength and resolve. With quick thinking, she invoked the power of the ASE crystal, summoning a shield of light that blinded the beast. The lion paused, then bowed its head in respect, dissolving into the air. With a trembling hand, Zikora grasped the Staff of Ogun, the second relic. The final challenge, the heart of the curse. The last chamber was a small, dark room with a single pedestal. Resting on it was a simple, black stone, the heart of the curse. As Zikora stepped forward, the room shifted. The hunger inside her roared in response, and the shadows thickened, pressing in like a physical force. She felt a voice in her mind, cold, demanding, "Claim me, and you become my vessel forever." Zikora clenched her teeth, fighting the temptation. She raised the Staff of Ogun, chanting the words from the scroll, drawing on every ounce of strength. The room erupted in light, the curse battling her will. Moments stretched into eternity. Then silence. A new power. When the light faded, Zikora stood alone, clutching the relics. The hunger inside was quieter, contained, but still present. Oba stepped forward, awe in his eyes. "You did it." Zikora nodded, exhaustion washing over her, but a fierce spark burned within. "We have a chance," she said. "But this is just the beginning." The city of Lagos simmered under the twilight, its streets alive with an electric tension. In the distance, the glowing lights of Mr. Durojaiye's mansion flickered like a beacon, the epicenter of an unfolding storm no one could yet fully understand. Inside the grand hall, Zikora stood firm, clutching the sacred relics, the ASE crystal pulsing faintly in her hand, the Staff of Ogun resting heavily at her side, and the black stone, the heart of the curse, secured in a protective satchel. The air was thick with anticipation as she prepared to face the darkness that had haunted the city for generations. Outside, shadows gathered with unnatural speed. The cultists, their faces hidden beneath dark hoods, encircled the mansion. Their chants rose and fell like waves, an eerie symphony of devotion to a power long forgotten and long feared. Oba stood beside Zikora, his eyes scanning the windows, alert to every whisper of movement. "They will not give up easily," he said grimly. "This is their last chance." Zikora nodded, her gaze distant yet resolute. "And it's ours too." Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the room. The lights flickered. Mr. Durojaiye stepped forward from the shadows, no longer the composed host, but a figure transformed by the weight of the curse. His skin shimmered like obsidian, veins glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. His eyes, once warm and welcoming, burned with ancient power. The secret he had carried for so long now unveiled itself in full. "I am bound by blood and magic," Durojaiye's voice echoed, deep and resonant. "The pact that sustains me also imprisons the city." Zikora took a step back, heart pounding. "Then we break it now." The cultists surged forward, breaking through the mansion's protective wards. The battle erupted in a torrent of energy, light against shadow, hope against despair. Zikora wielded the Staff of Ogun, its ancient runes glowing as she unleashed bolts of piercing light. Oba fought fiercely, protecting her flank, while Baba Tun's chants wove a shield of sacred power around them. Durojaiye, in his transformed state, moved with terrifying speed and strength, a living conduit of the curse's dark energy. You cannot win this fight, he warned, voice thick with pain and power. The hunger demands a vessel, and I am its chosen. As the battle reached its peak, Zikora felt the hunger surge within her, a tempest of darkness threatening to consume her soul. The ASE crystal flared, responding to her will. With a cry, she stepped forward, raising the relics high. If a vessel is needed, let it be me. Her voice rang with unyielding strength as the curse's shadows lunged for her, but the relic's light enveloped her in a protective embrace. Durojaiye's eyes softened with recognition. No, you will not carry this burden alone. Together, they joined their powers, weaving a new pact, not one of bondage, but of balance. As the first rays of dawn pierced the horizon, the shadows dissipated, the hunger quieted, and the cultists fled, broken and defeated. Zikora stood among the ruins, weary but unbroken. The curse was sealed once more, this time by her courage and sacrifice. Lagos breathed a sigh of relief, its future uncertain but hopeful. Durojaiye, now free from the curse's torment, smiled faintly. If only they knew why I never ate food. The dawn light filtered softly through the tall windows of Mr. Durojaiye's mansion, casting long, golden streaks across the ornate floors. The fierce battle had ended, but a heavy silence hung in the air, a quiet before a storm yet to come. Zikora sat alone in the vast library, the weight of the relics resting on the table before her. Her eyes traced the faded lines of an ancient book she had found tucked behind a hidden panel. The pages, brittle with age, whispered secrets she hadn't yet dared to fully comprehend. The room felt colder than the morning air should have been, and somewhere deep inside her a knot of unease twisted, unveiling the true curse. Zikora flipped the page carefully. The text was written in an old Yoruba dialect, but with Baba Tun's guidance, she had begun piecing it together. The curse was no ordinary spell, it was a binding contract forged centuries ago by a powerful Oba who had sought to protect his people from an unspeakable evil. But in his desperation, the Oba had sealed a darkness within the bloodline of a chosen guardian, a man destined never to consume the gifts of the earth, forever sustained by the shadows themselves. Mr. Durojaiye was that guardian. His refusal to eat was not defiance or magic, but survival, an eternal balance between life and curse. Zikora's fingers trembled. If this bond is broken, she whispered, what becomes of him? And what of the city? Durojaiye's confession. The sound of footsteps drew her attention. Mr. Durojaiye entered quietly, his expression unreadable. You've learned much, he said, voice softer than before. Zikora looked up, meeting his steady gaze. I have to know everything. Why did you never eat? What price did you pay? He sighed deeply, moving to a chair across from her. Long ago, my ancestor made a pact with an ancient spirit to protect Lagos from a devastating famine and war. The spirit granted us power, but demanded a sacrifice, a vessel who would bear its hunger forever. That vessel was me. I am bound to this curse. To feed it is to invite destruction upon the city. He paused, pain flickering in his eyes. I threw lavish feasts to keep appearances, to mask the truth. But I have lived in solitude, always afraid my secret would bring ruin. The weight of the burden. Zikora reached out, placing a hand over his. You're not alone anymore. We can find another way. He smiled faintly, a flicker of hope breaking through centuries of despair. But the curse is ancient, powerful. If we break the pact without caution, the spirit's wrath could consume us all. Suddenly, the mansion's walls seemed to pulse, shadows creeping once again across the floor. A new threat emerges. Outside, the cultists regrouped, their chants darker, more fervent. They had not been defeated but driven into hiding. Their leader, a figure cloaked in obsidian robes, had invoked a forbidden ritual, awakening an even darker force. Zikora's heart pounded. This was no longer just a battle for survival, but a war for the very soul of Lagos. She looked at the relics again, the talisman glowing faintly. "We need allies," she said, determination blazing in her eyes. "This fight has only just begun." The city holds its breath. As the sun climbed higher, Lagos seemed to hold its breath, unaware that beneath its vibrant surface, shadows deepened, ancient forces stirred, and destinies intertwined. Zikora and Durojaiye stood ready, guardians against the darkness, but the path ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger, sacrifice, and secrets yet to be revealed. The hunger might be quiet for now, but it was never truly gone. And if only they knew why he never ate food, their shock would only be the beginning.